Welcome to the PTA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, John Caliger. I'm accompanied by my co-host, Nick Kelling. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
So, for all of our loyal listeners, all seven of you, I want to apologize for April. We did not release that many episodes. That is 100% on me. I went on vacation and then I got really sick. I got the flu for a solid 2 weeks and I was bedridden. So the lack of episodes is 100% on me. Nick was hounding me trying to get these episodes done, and I was just being very weak-minded and like I have no energy to record. So for all seven of you who are our loyal listeners, we do appreciate you. We do love you, and I apologize. So Nick, how have you been, my friend?
Good. About to go vote this weekend, and everyone's been talking about early voting for this new appraisal positions within Houston.
Okay, so that is going to be the topic of today's episode of the appraisal. Before we run the clip of the YouTube video of it, can you just explain for the people what an appraiser is?
Yeah. So these are government appointed, and they will go. So when you buy a house, the bank will get an appraisal on your property. That's just to make sure that you're buying the house at market value. So the bank's not lending you more money than this house is worth. Then now the government will also do an appraisal. This is the assessed value. This is different than what someone is willing to pay for your house. The assessed value is what you pay taxes on. So the assessed value is always lower, or it should be lower. Then if it's your investment property, you can depreciate that value over time, so you pay less and less taxes. And you can also, if you think your assessed value is over, you can always challenge that to maybe get it lowered, and you do that through your state courts. Now,
Okay,
what's
appraiser
happening
is
in
someone
Texas right now is that a lot of these appointed. What's up?
so an appraiser is just someone who determines the value of your home for tax purposes.
Tax and for the bank to lend you the money. These are
Okay.
different positions. One is going to be hired through the bank, and one of them's through the government. These are two different values, and they're pretty important values, because one you're getting a loan on, and the other one you're paying taxes on. You
Yeah,
do
that's the
not
most.
pay taxes on the amount of house that you buy. So if you buy an $800,000 house, you're not paying taxes on 800,000. You're paying taxes on maybe 600,000 or whatever the assessed value is.
Okay.
Two different values.
That's
Now in Texas, we have a homestead exemption of 100,000. So let's say you buy a house for 800,000, your assessed value is 700,000. You have the exemption on your homestead that's minus 100,000. So you only pay taxes on 600,000. Now over time, you can depreciate that amount. So eventually, 5 years from now, it might depreciate $50,000. So now you pay tax on even less. So what
okay.
in Texas? So what in Houston right now? We're voting in half of the members that are going to be assessing your taxes. In the past, it was appointed, and these people had different. They wanted to increase the assessed value as much as possible, and this was getting a lot of people kicked out of the house because they couldn't pay the taxes.
Okay.
Texas was fed up with that. We're seeing home prices go up. We're going to make this kind of political. A lot of people didn't want that to be very political, but if you're taxing something, it's already political. So making it people voting on who's going to be being determine the price on that house is already political. Like it's already there because you're taxing us on it.
Yeah.
So now we get a vote in half of the members. So half is being appointed and the other half is being voted on.
Okay. Let's roll into the clip and they'll break it down for us, and we'll give our thoughts and opinions.
Yep, I got it. I got these pop-ups on my computer. I got it. I got it. All right. Rolling it.
For the first time, voters are able to weigh in on who controls property appraisals. In the state's 50th largest counties, which include most of North Texas counties, voters will be asked to elect 3 members of their appraisal district boards. Fox 4's Lori Brown live in Dallas to explain. Hey, Lori.
Hi, Clarice. With home prices up around the state, Texans are once again dealing with property appraisal sticker shock. But this time around, many can now weigh in on who is on their appraisal district board.
It happens almost every year.
I really haven't done anything to my property, to the house or the land itself, but yet they've continued to increase for tax purposes.
Soaring property appraisals that lead in turn to higher property tax bills.
The increase is just astonishing.
Texas lawmakers have been getting an earful from constituents who
can't afford to leave, can't afford to stay.
But now, for the first time in Texas, homeowners will get to have a say about who is on the board of their property appraisal district, the board responsible for determining accurate property values.
Well, first of all, people should know that this was something that they authorized previously by voting for the property tax reduction package that the legislature put through.
While most voters focused on the increase to the homestead exemption, that measure last November also created the elected appraisal board positions.
The pros would be that it creates a greater level of citizen involvement, that it gives ordinary taxpayers, ordinary voters, more of a direct say in how property taxes are apportioned, appraised.
But Matthew Wilson says it also brings politics into the process.
This is in part by design, because of course, if members of the appraisal boards are elected, their incentive is to please taxpayers by keeping appraisals low. Where that could create issues is that those downward pressures on appraisals could create revenue crunches for some of these taxing jurisdictions. So we're going to have to see how those dynamics play out over time.
Do you think that voters going to the polls are going to be well educated on who's running for these positions?
Yeah. Can you? I think
the answer to that is absolutely not. I mean, if we're realistic about the way elections work, people.
So kind of give us a breakdown of, like, to summarize everything, that the Homestead Act that they voted on allowed people to vote on their appraisals and hopefully make it more fair and accurate, like the value of the home. Because we've talked about this at length. I feel like the average price of a home in 2018, 2019 was $250. Now it's $450,000. So
Yeah,
there's no way there's been $200,000 worth of appreciation on the average price of a home.
Yeah, and then people's been saying, like, this has been a huge thing in Texas too, and people just can't afford the taxes on a house that they already paid the whole mortgage on. Like, and now they're just paying taxes. They're retired. They were thinking that they were going to pay, $8,000 a year in taxes, and then their house doubled in value, and now they're getting paid 16. And they're like, I can't afford this. I wasn't budgeting for this. I wasn't planning for this. When I talked to my financial advisor, we didn't plan for this. Like, it was unforeseen, and now I'm gonna have to be homeless or now live in an apartment. And it's not fair. These people work their whole lives to live in the house, and just because the tax assessor came over and doubled their home value, they have to pay double. The whole thing about getting politics into it and people unaware of who they're voting for, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think the people who are not voting are not going to know about this.
Yeah.
The people who are going to the poll and voting, they're going to be aware of what's going on. They're going to be aware of, oh, am I voting because I want more money to go to schools and I want taxes to go up because our schools are failing? Yep, they're going to go and vote for, this guy that says he wants to raise the taxes. Oh, I want my property taxes to go lower. I see all these people, becoming homeless or being forced out of their house, and this isn't right. They're going to go and they're going to vote for lowering a guy that wants to lower the assessed values of these houses. So I think the people who are voting are going to be aware of what they're voting. The people who are not voting are, they're just not going to vote, and they're not going to be aware of what's happening. But it gives the people that wants to participate in voting and who is appointed to these really powerful spots. Some say otherwise it's just being appointed by some local board.
Yeah, because Nick, I kind of want to. I completely agree with you. I kind of want to talk about solutions and what you think would be a solution to this. I personally think you should be able to, if you own a home outright. I mean, you can have like a second mortgage. You can have a home equity. If you don't have a mortgage, like if the house is completely paid off and you owe nothing to it, I don't think you should pay any property taxes. But say you have a mortgage and you have a home equity line of credit or a second mortgage, whatever, then I think you should pay property taxes. But I think it should be illegal to pay property taxes on if you say you worked your whole life, you paid the 30-year mortgage, you paid everything off. Think about it. A 30-year mortgage, if you paid like 3 times more than whatever the house is worth, you know what I'm saying, in interest. Like if you bought $100,000 home, you probably paid $400,000 for that house over time if you paid the 30-year mortgage. So I think you paid enough money. I think it should be legal to pay property taxes if you have no lien or loan on the home. Do you agree with me or disagree?
I disagree. I think it should be off of your homestead. So what you call your home, you do not pay taxes on. So if I have 3 houses that I'm renting out and it's investment, yeah, I'm paying taxes on that. But if I have a house and I'm living in it and this is my homestead, there should be 100% tax exemption. Now, I could understand, meet somewhere in the middle being like the average house, 400,000 tax exemption. So if you want something above, you pay, if you want a $500,000 house, you're going to pay $1,000 taxes, whatever that rate is. So like 2.3% of 100,000 per year. But I'm on the position of no taxes on your homestead.
The reason why I say you have to pay taxes if you have like a lien or any sort of loan against your home, regardless if it's your primary residence or an investment property, is because like the main source of funding for the school system is property taxes. And I think like if you're actively, because like think about it, like the most people who have mortgages, have a wife, have a kids, like they're in the game. And I think like if you participated in the game, you should at least like pay your taxes. But like in theory, if you buy a house, let's just say you buy a house at 35, and then you paid the 30, and you have like that's when you have your kids, your wife, and everything, and you paid off 30 years at 65. And you retire. Well, you're leaving the game. You know what I'm saying? Like you're leaving the rat race. So I'm like, if you like, I don't know, like that's kind of how I view it. Of like, if you're in the game, pay your way, like pay your dues in the game, like pay your taxes. You're in the game, but once you leave the rat race, then why we're hitting you over the head once you leave?
Yeah, that makes sense. But I know a lot of
I believe I agree. I agree with you.
A lot of people who are retired or still have mortgage on their house.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're still gonna be paying those taxes. If it was based off of your homestead,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be paying taxes. And the idea that people aren't going to invest in real estate, I mean, you're still getting that cash revenue. There's so many commercial buildings. I mean, all apartment buildings will still be paying taxes, all commercial buildings, which makes up like half of the real estate. So
Yeah.
So there'd still be money coming in. Obviously, it'd be less. But when it comes to the schools, I'm all about the private schools. If we could have less public, so be it. More private, and then you just pay your way in while you're in the school. So if you have 3 kids, you pay for 3 kids to go to school. If you don't have any kids, you don't pay for your kids going to school. Like, why do we have to have this socialist program of school? Like, if you want 5 kids, you're paying for 5 kids, go through private school. You're going to be paying that through taxes, or you're going to be paying that picking a school. Now, should the government help you out if you have a low, income and stuff like that? Yeah, there should be programs for that. Like, absolutely. Like, no one's going to be able to afford, paying 100% of K through 12. But the idea that 100% funded schools is like the way to go, and private schools, are the second thing only for rich people. I disagree with that concept.
I do like, I think we kind of lost track of like the public school system because it's been politicized and used against us. But in theory, like, because back in the day, our public schools were out of control good. And if I think we get back to what made them great, I think it would be advantageous because if you think about it, even if you don't say you live, like, I'm going to use my hometown, Wheaton, Illinois, great place to grow up, great place to have kids. A lot of people who grow up there stay there and never leave. That's how great of a place it is. I think there is a benefit to society. Like, I'm not talking about like society. I'm talking about like the local society of Wheaton, Illinois, that everyone pays their fair, like everyone pays their taxes for the public school because it all benefits. Like, you're helping your
think that has merit. That has 100% merit. Yeah.
and I think we kind of lose track sometimes of, like, we look at Austin, we look at New York City, we look at Chicago, where basically they took an idea and they turned it into like socialism, and they rob the kids, they don't teach, they don't do anything, and then we look like, wait, that's a horrible example of public schools because it's just run horribly, like it's been run politically. But I do think the thing that separates America from everyone else, because if you have a good public school system,
No, I 100% agree. And that's why a national, a national like idea won't cover the whole thing. It has to be local. It has to be local.
I agree.
A small town in Texas, can't afford to have, a private school. Like, it should be funded by the public, 100%. If a small town and, they hate public school, but there's a really thriving private school in there, then that's how, their charter should be, set up. Like, hey, we're not going to have property taxes here, but hey, if you want your kids to go to this school, you're going to have to pay this. Now, there's these government programs out there to help you, but you're going to have to pay your fair share while your kids are in school, if that's how they want it. You can't do it on a state level. You can do voucher systems on the state level, but saying that, like, you have to have a public school somewhere, I think is wrong, and that's what we have.
No, I agree with you. It definitely should be localized to. I think it should be localized to the county, how your county wants to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to steer clear of like
the town that I grew up in has one huge public school system, and is probably the best way. Sending a private school in there would be awful.
Yeah,
having one public school there is probably the best thing for that town.
and not to get too political, but often the times where public school works the least well, and I think this is kind of a critique of the American system. If the people who are actively participating in the system don't care, they don't value education, they don't value their fellow man, they don't value hard work. There's certain intrinsic things you need to have for a democracy, like a democratic republic, to work. Of like, you need to value education, you need to value hard work, you need to value other man. And if you don't have that in that community, well, then it's just not going to work. It's just And I think
the Houston public school systems are failing. And I mean, there's some part of it has admin problems and all that stuff. There's some corruption, money problems, but a lot of it comes from increased violence within schools. I mean, there's teachers' testimony be like, hey, been literally assaulted at school trying to teach my kids. And then kids assaulting each other like every day. If the community, it all starts with family, right? If you raise a bunch of bad children and then they go to the public school system and they assault their teacher and assault other people, and then that happens on, a huge scale, that school system is going to fail. It doesn't matter how much money you pump into it. It's going to fail. So it all starts with the family, the nuclear family. That has a cross or something about some object.
It's so funny. Nick cut out as soon as he mentioned God. Well, people, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good rest of your day. God bless, and have a good rest of your day.